Hey, Ed here from 10,000 Foot View, and I've got something a little different for you today. I am starting a new series that's going to be about how pay-per-click advertisers can work efficiently with their agencies. And today's topic, which is the first, will be about setting and managing two goals, which can be a big issue for a lot of advertisers and for agencies. Just before I jump in, a reminder to please like our content and subscribe to the channel. That's how we can keep doing this. And we do post on Google Ads once or twice every week. Okay, so setting goals is absolutely crucial to the success of any pay-per-click program. Yet we routinely, when we start working with a new client, um, often struggle to get them to give us their business goals, which just shows that a lot of advertisers really don't have a clue what they want. Now that's not in all cases, but I'd say like at least in a third of cases when we start working with a small business, as we go through like our audit process, and then onboarding, there's often a lot of back and forth to try and figure out like what should your CPA be, or what ROAS should you be aiming for, how many leads you want to generate in a month. Oftentimes, there's just like a default budget, which can be like, well, this is what we've always spent every month. Or there can be other things, or there's just a lack of communication. So again, if you're an advertiser or you're an agency, it's important during onboarding to establish what the goals are for the campaign. And then the other part of that is just as an agency, you have to make sure that those goals are realistic, or you shouldn't really move forward to take on that client. We have clients that say like, "Hey, we have an unlimited budget as long as we're hitting a target." But the reality is that the target's completely unrealistic. So that's where good agencies will, during the audit process, during onboarding, just make sure that, what the client's goals are realistic, that they'll be able to meet that, and set everybody up for success. So in terms of which goals are important, I kind of touched on a couple of them. For most businesses that are interested in lead gen, it's really about the lead volume, how many leads you get per month, for example, and then what is the lead quality. And in Google Ads, of course, it's very easy to measure the lead volume by tracking conversions, but lead quality is much more difficult to get at. And because of that, it's important for clients to provide feedback to the agency as to kind of like how the leads are, how many leads they actually convert into sales, whether they're getting a lot of junk leads and what have you. You can also use some quantification. For example, if your lead form has like a budget range for your clients, I'm talking about customers for the advertiser, you can kind of use that as an input to see like, oh, is like the average budget that's coming into our lead form, is that improving, increasing over time? But again, for lead gen, those are the two kind of main things, and then it's really like, hey, we spent 5,000 last month and we got 50 leads, but we'd really like to have 70 leads. What will we need to spend to get to that new target? And that's where a good agency will use Performance Planner in Google Ads to come up with an estimate, because things obviously aren't linear when it comes to increasing spend in leads. On the other side, really, it's going to be sales. If you're in e-com, it's a pretty straightforward proposition in terms of like how much revenue did you generate off of what your cost was and what was your ROAS. So again, you look at like how much revenue can we generate. Obviously, if you increase your spend, your ROAS typically goes down once you get to a certain threshold. So you're going to be getting less return percentage, but you will still be getting more revenue. Um, and again, upfront setting that target ROAS can be tricky because you need to consider quite a few different things as an advertiser. One, and kind of the obvious one, is cash flow. If you're, putting $10,000 a month into Google Ads, what are you getting out, and is that affordable for you when you look at your cost of goods sold and your return? Um, Companies that have been around a little bit longer and maybe cash flow constraints aren't as tight, they'll be looking more towards like a growth strategy, client acquisition, and kind of building in some of those costs and not being so concerned with, oh, like, our first order, we only got like 150% ROAS. The truth is that, hey, we're selling a recipe bag. And so we know that, our new customers are going to stick around for an average of like 14 months. Therefore, we can even take a loss on the first order. So that's where you have to be thoughtful in coming up with those numbers. And of course, they may change over time, but, it's important to set something that's actually going to be realistic and actually drive, realistic or good performance for your business. So those are kinds of the main goals that you need to discuss with your agency and communicate. Make sure everybody's aligned. And then if you need to change those, again, you need to communicate them. The other part of this, we'll have clients that everything's great, when they respond to like reports and stuff, and they don't say anything's wrong, and then like 3 months later, they're like, oh, by the way, like the lead quality's been really poor for 3 months. It's like, well, why are you only telling us this now? We could have done something about this, right? Either you could have beefed up like your web form to, basically that increases the lead quality. And there's a bunch of things you could do to increase lead quality. It's usually a trade-off with volume, but sometimes it makes more sense to get fewer leads if those leads are going to typically convert better. So that's kind of it. This is probably one of the most critical things to set everybody up for success. If you're not doing this at the front end, and if you're not periodically looking at what the goals are and how you're trending towards those goals, you really will be in trouble a lot of times. But that is it for today. I will see you next time.